Hello, hello, hello. I'm ready for today's workshop. Let me just give it a moment, give people a chance to sign on. I want to make sure I'm alive. Okay, I can see myself. I'm going to go ahead and pin a link for you guys. I am so excited for today. Just you wait. Today is going to blow your freaking minds. You're not even ready. Okay. Just got really hungry. That's poor timing. Okay. There we go. Pinned. I am so jazzed for today. Today is going to be incredible. We are talking about so many cool, fun things today. Yeah, I'm jazzed up. Just ready for people to start showing up. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So, hello, everyone. Let me make sure I can see my comments on here because I can't see them on StreamYard. I got to check them out here. All right, we got a few people tuning in. If you're tuning in, please say hello. I'm so excited. I found my glasses. They've been missing for about 5 days, but I found them. And I'm so excited for day 2 of the Quantum Shift workshop. This is going to be amazing. I want to see how many people we can get from different continents. My goal is to get 6 of the 7 one day. I think we normally get definitely like North America, and we definitely get Europe. I would love it if I know we've got some Australians. I don't know if I think they're asleep right now, but that's okay. So maybe they're up late or up early. So anyway, please say hello. Tell me who you are. Tell me what you do. And why I should love you. I'm going to do that every time, just so you're aware. That's just my Backstreet Boys fandom from back in the day. So anyway, I'm tuning in from Tallahassee, Florida. I am not getting fall weather. I am very jealous of those of you who are getting fall weather. But that's not stopping me from enjoying fall treats. I'm like putting cinnamon on everything right now. Anyway, I see we've got people watching. Please go ahead and say hello and tell me who you are and tell me what you're excited about. So while I'm waiting for more people to sign on, I want to know, what were your biggest aha moments yesterday? Yesterday, we talked all about the science of manifestation. We were talking about like literally some quantum physics, and we're going to continue that today because you guys are smart. You're smart cookies. And we had a discussion yesterday talking about how whatever is convincing to you is like what you need to focus on when you're looking to manifest and create your reality. And I had shared that scientific articles, studies, things like that, that's what I find convincing. And so I'm bringing some of that here today. So I see you guys, we've got a few people. Don't be shy. I don't want to feel like I'm talking to myself here. So anyway, I want to know, what made you come back for round 2 today? What are you so excited about? What goal did you come here with? I know yesterday was all about manifesting $10,000 in a week, and we're definitely still continuing with that as the focus and the lens for what we're doing today. But I want to make sure that this content is tailored exactly for what you want. I mean, if you were here yesterday, you know that we spent a lot of time talking about the mental shifts and the actions that you need to take to make that 10K in 1 week. We talked about the science and how it's our subjective experience of the world around us that creates reality. Basically, reality doesn't exist if there's not a creature or some kind of device to record its existence, right? We talked about, like, if a tree falls in the woods and no one's around to hear it, does it make a noise? And I talked about how I used to say, well, yeah, of course, because it's still making the sound waves. But if there's nothing to experience the sound waves, it doesn't really matter. So now I answer that with no, it doesn't make a noise, because it's our subjective experience of reality that creates reality. And we talked about how all of us have three aspects. Oh, I see Caroline Birch is here. Oh, you weren't here yesterday? Totally fine, Caroline. Or no, that was Lucille. Lucille says, I wasn't here yesterday. Is that okay? Totally fine. And Caroline is going to catch up on yesterday. Totally fine. You guys can watch this today. If you didn't catch it, no worries, because you can still follow along and then go back and check that out, because we're not like, we are building upon the concepts, but you're going to learn some new stuff today as well. So today we're discussing timeline jumping, which is the next step in like up-leveling your life, manifesting your dreams. And I'm just so jazzed to talk about timeline jumping, because it's the natural next step in stepping into the reality we crave that includes the business, the partner, the home, whatever of your dreams. Like, that's what this is. So if we're getting, and we also talked yesterday about how there are three aspects of your psyche, and I have my own names for them: the shadow, the ego, the highest self. And we talked about getting them all on board. So if we're getting them all on the board, all on board with the same goal, then it makes sense that the next step for us is to not just to feel like the person who believes these new thoughts, but someone who's actively living in the integration of those thoughts. So we have to actively step onto the path where we can encounter our manifestations on that timeline. And this is necessary for us to do this, so that when we talk tomorrow about casting spells and magic, going from science straight into the woo, when we're talking about that, we're moving there with that knowledge and that swagger that we need to make a spell work, right? Like, because it has to be that, like, you have to have the power and the energy behind it in order for a spell to work, period. That's just how it is. So, and it's, to explain it, just saw a glimpse of myself. I got crazy flyaways here. It's similar energy to when you charge high ticket, right? So when you charge premium prices, you create the opportunity for yourself to show up with better service and product, like, to your clients, and B, for your clients to show up in a way that gets them to take the actions they need to get results that they're craving, right? You have to have skin in the game in order to feel compelled to keep up with things, right? So in addition to that, your clients value your service and your goods more because people pay attention to what they pay for. So even though this is a free workshop, I really want you to still bring that energy here today. So show up with that swagger, the same swagger you bring to clients, customers, and create space for your glow up this week, okay? Take notes, ask questions, give it your all, because this is going to be some dense material today, but I'm a pretty good teacher, so we're going to get through it. And I want you to get all you can out of this workshop, because my hourly rate is $850. So this is like such a great opportunity for you to really get that coaching that I bring to my clients. So, all of that being said, who even am I? Why does it cost $850 an hour to work with me? My name is Jessie DaSilva. I'm an intuitive business consultant and a money mindset coach. I'm known as the Millennial Money Witch, and that was a name given to me by Forbes based on my unique coaching formula that's based on the three principles of magic and manifestation as I see them. So I'm covering those this week in this workshop, and that's the formula I use to teach my clients. Those three steps to the formula are: align your intentions, embody them deeply, and take inspired action daily. And those are the principles that I use to change my life. It's not just the principles that you need to make a spell work. It's also the same principles you need to make a business strategy work, to make that succeed. It's the same thing that you need for manifesting. All of it's exactly the same. And what I use these for is I use these to bring myself from being in a place where I lived in constant anxiety, in a city that wasn't serving me anymore. Now I live in beautiful North Florida. I'm really close to nature. It's nice and quiet. It's pitch black at night, no street lamps right through my window, no honking car horns, all of that, no sirens. And it's like such a glow up for me. And I never would have guessed that I would be here like a few years ago. I also went from being in a place where my rent checks were bouncing to having things like $11,000 cash days and $26,000 launches. I went from being a binge eater and an orthorexic. Those who you don't know what that is, it's just like an obsession with health and fitness, to somebody and being desperately self-conscious over this smaller, cute body I see now, to being somebody who's comfortable having gained like 60 pounds. And like being at my largest, I actually have just learned to find peace and love in my body. And along the way, I've connected with like that $11,000 sales day. I've had $14,000 cash launches. I've had a free photo shoot, like free professional photo shoot, articles in Yahoo Finance and Forbes, countless podcast appearances. I've also had like free luxury travel opportunities. I've had a free stay in a presidential suite. I've been upgraded to first class, like without any reason to. So it's just really more fun and joy in my business than I ever have. Like I'm really genuinely at that point where if I were to lose all my money, honestly, I would just be excited to know that there has been the ultimate creation of space for more to come my way. So all of this, that formula, all of my experience, it actually inspired a longer 12-week program to go deeper into those magical principles and how to apply them so people can not only up-level their business, but their entire fucking life. Because your business was never meant to thrive in a vacuum. But I'm going to save that for later so we can get into the lesson for today. I've pinned the link below to it. It's called Practical Magic. So feel free to open that into a new tab so you can jump in when I'm ready to cover it. But now I want to get into the timeline jumping. So go ahead and get your pens out, your paper ready. And if you have questions, don't hesitate. If it fits with the framework, I'll answer them in the moment. And if it doesn't, like I will get to them at the end. So I want to talk about what it means to timeline jump and how this is different than faking it until you make it or trying to like visualize, because it's an easy trap to fall into in the manifestation process that you're constantly almost dreaming about another reality rather than actually seeing a new reality play out. And take a sip of water real quick. So just like yesterday, we're going to actually start with some super timely science courtesy of the CIA. So the CIA just released a bunch of a whole report on manifestation documents about a program called the Gateway Process. It was it was like a whole research paper that they had done back in 1983 that was explaining manifestation and how it works, and like basically to saying that it is actually real, which is wild. So they put it out there and then they immediately deleted it. So I'm excited to talk about the stuff that I read. We're not going to cover everything in the report, but basically so they sent an operative to fully summarize and explore this specific form of manifestation called the Gateway Process. And what it's done more beautifully than a lot of other resources I've read is that it explains the science behind collective consciousness, the role of that consciousness in creating the hologram that we live in, that is reality, and how our brains navigate this hologram and can influence and shape our reality through manifestation. And don't worry, I will post it. You don't have to go Google it. I'll post the document in the group right after this call, but it's so juicy. So I'm not going to cover everything, but I will upload the full document. I'm going to cover like the most important aspects of it for our purposes today. So jumping off of things that you may have learned in elementary school or middle school, we learned that all matter is made up of energy, which is those atoms that vibrate and bump up against each other to form solids, liquids, and gases, right? And you also know now that it's our perception of how that energy presents that allows it to exist reality. Basically, if there's nothing, no creature, no device to record something's existence, whether it's visual or auditory or tactile, then it doesn't actually exist. So It's no surprise that we are also made up of the same energy as the rest of the universe, right? And so that means that energy is not only inside us, but it's flowing through our brains at all times. So, like, it's both our physical body and our consciousness, right? Our thoughts. It's like the electric currents, it's all of that. That is still like, that is energy as well. So as we perceive reality, so how this works is that as we're perceiving reality, as we're living through time, as we're going through this hologram or this experience of life, our brain is trying to simplify everything. It's trying to like bring this really big awareness into something simple. So our brains reduce everything into like a two choice option. Like, so basically our brain lives through time and space by reducing everything to go or stop, yes or no. And that's in the same way that a computer program does, right? Like if you're typing on your computer, like every time you press a key, the computer knows go, 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 go. And when you stop typing, it just sits and it's now in a stop position. So everything, our brain is trying to simplify all things all the time. But the difference is that we as humans are also self-aware. And that differentiates us from animals, plants, and computer programs. So we know that we know, right? Like if anybody's seen that Friends episode, we know that they know that we know. I love that episode. I think that's funny. So anyway, all that means is that we're capable of changing the reality in which we function because we're not purely operating on this binary. I mean, we're still operating on the binary, but we can shift how we respond to the binary. It's not just instinctual like animals do. Animals just kind of react to their environments. They're not actively going out and changing the circumstances that they get themselves into, right? It's purely just like reaction. So we learned in school, along when we learned that like matter makes up everything, we also learned that matter can neither be created nor destroyed. And that means that these atoms that form our body, that form all the objects around us, the energy that flows through us has always been there and will always be there, right? Like it's there. Like our bodies were created from our mother's tissue, which was and her body was created by her mother's tissue. Like everything comes from atoms and cells and all of this stuff, right? Like it's wild. And so this matter that we're made up of, it may change and it may transform in the way that a corpse will decay and become part of the earth, but it always existed and it will always continue to exist in some form of another. So the same thing happens with our consciousness, not the physical body, but the way we experience things. But this is something that we've mostly seen espoused in religion, right? We are dust and unto dust we shall return. So it's the same thing with our consciousness. When our consciousness ends or begins or whatever, so our consciousness begins because it comes from a cosmic consciousness. And when it ends, it just returns to this cosmic consciousness. And you can think of this as God, the universe, the force, whatever you want. Nirvana, karma, I don't know those terms as well, but like you can think of it, this collective consciousness as like a cloud almost, like for like computers and devices. So this collective consciousness both already existed before us and it was created by us. So it's like it's existing and creating us and we live and feed into it. So it's almost like that figure 8, right? Like where the center is being fed in. So you can kind of think of it like that way. The collective consciousness is always existing and creating our consciousness. Our consciousness is existing and feeding into the collective. Does that make sense? If you're with me, go ahead, drop an emoji, say I'm with you, I get you. If you have questions, go ahead and ask because we're getting into some pretty dense stuff. So this is when the Bible had said that we were created in God's image, that's what it means. It's not about our physical body, because that would be man, like God created in man's image. It's about our minds, our souls, our consciousness. That's our awareness. That is man being created in God's image, if that makes sense. So if your consciousness is another form of energy, and that's connected to this God force and fueling this God force, and also being fueled by the God force, it's not a huge leap of logic to know that you can then connect to the other realities that are also connected to this consciousness, right? Which, because when we're living in this binary, as we make decisions, we're splitting into different realities, right? So it's like one version of you said yes. It's like choose your own adventure, right? Like you said yes to one thing, so you're living in this version. And then reality splits into another version that had said no. And that is just like a different version of you's reality. But you're experiencing the one you're in right now. So that means you're always connected to all versions of yourself and those different realities in which you live, because they're all feeding into the consciousness while the consciousness is feeding into them. Does that make sense? If this makes sense, please say makes sense, because I want to make sure we're all on the same page and you understand what I'm saying. So what this is partially what forms our intuition. So intuition is essentially a collection of your brain's stored memories that finds patterns, right? Because to inform the choices that you make, your brain wants to simplify things and it wants to look for patterns where it can. So how many people have been in a situation before where you're facing a choice or you're dealing with a person and it reminds you of a different situation that you've been in or a different person that you interacted with, and they may not even be anywhere near each other, but it just feels similar. If you've ever been in that situation, go ahead and say like me, that sounds like me, I've totally been there. And so that's because your brain is always looking for data. It's always storing data and analyzing data that informs the choices that you make. Oh, Mariah says this is being explained really well. I'm so glad, because this is my gift, is explaining really dense information. Take a sip. So when your brain where your brain is getting this data from is from a multitude of places, right? So it comes from lived experiences. So as your brain has experienced, as your consciousness has experienced things from birth till now, it forms, it finds patterns. And that's why sometimes you have an experience or you meet a person that reminds you of a different experience or a different person, and they may not be similar, but it feels similar. And you're like, and maybe you're wary because of that person, or maybe you trust them like much sooner because of another person. Like it just allows you to kind of operate in that way. But other things that feed into our intuition that come from this energy, and that is never created nor destroyed. Ancestral trauma is one. So something that's wild is knowing that when a woman is pregnant, if she's pregnant with a person who has a uterus and fallopian tubes, the eggs of that fetus form while that woman is pregnant with that person. So that means, and we're going to use female pronouns here, but I completely recognize that not all people who can get pregnant are women or female. And also not all people who have uteruses and fallopian tubes and all of that, not all of them are women as well. But I'm still going to use that vernacular to make it a little bit easier for us. So basically, a grandmother, like a woman who is pregnant, is not only pregnant with her daughter, but her daughter is fully forming her eggs for her future children. And that is how ancestral trauma is passed on, because as a woman who is pregnant is experiencing stress, like women who are in wartime or famine, that stress, those high levels of cortisol, are not only affecting her, it's also affecting the development of that fetus, of that female fetus, and that female fetus's eggs. It's so crazy. And so that's why we see genetic predisposition to things like anxiety and depression. It's also why some people have reported having memories or muscle memories, or like, for example, let's talk about like PTSD. So if somebody lived through a war, or somebody lived through lived in a domestic violence situation, a certain sound could trigger a physical response in the body. Well, that's not only going to be relevant to the pregnant woman who lived through those circumstances, it can be just as likely to set off her child or her grandchild, because they were essentially living through that experience as well. If this is blowing your mind as much as it blew my mind, please tell me, because this was next level for me. So that feeds into your intuition as well. So your brain is also storing the memories of your ancestors there that allows it to make decisions. And because your consciousness comes from the collective consciousness and fed into the collective consciousness, you do have access to your consciousness's past life experiences. So those past life experiences that you lived, although you may not remember them, your consciousness coming from this collective cloud has access to them as well. And that's where the concept of the Akashic records come from, right? That there's this collective database in another reality, in another universe, where all the records of the soul's past experiences are stored. Oh my God, Morgan Perkins Henry says, mind blown. Yeah, it's wild. So these are the things that inform your intuition. And it's not that big of a jump to then understand that other timelines are informing your intuition as well. As you've passed through different timelines, that's informed your consciousness. Those memories have been stored in your brain. So your brain gets all of its data from all of these different sources. And that's what intuition is. So when we're making decisions from a place of psychic knowing, meaning I know the answer, but I don't know why I know this, I just do, that is your intuition. And it presents differently for everybody, right? That's where we talk about the 5 different clairs: clairsentience, clairaudience. Some people feel it in their bodies, like the example of ancestral trauma, PTSD. You can sometimes feel it in your body. Maybe it's a feeling in your gut. Some people feel it as psychic knowing. They just know. No, that's how I present. I don't know why. I don't know how. I just know. Okay. And so that is how we learn to how our intuition forms and allows us to make choices. Now, I actually want to read to you from the CIA document that is so mind-blowing and how it works with problem solving, because I've talked about this so much, and I'm going to share my process for it, but this is going to blow your mind. So when you open this document, it's going to be on page 22, and there's so much science beforehand. But so when they talk about problem solving, so this is about how to change the problems in your life. So this technique involves identifying fundamental problems which the individual wishes to see solved, filling his expanded awareness with his perception of these problems, and then projecting them out into the universe. In this way, the individual enlists the assistance of what the Monroe Institute calls his higher self. In other words, his expanded consciousness to interact with the universal hologram to obtain the information required to solve the problem. This approach may be used to solve personal difficulties, technical problems in the realm of physics, mathematics, etc., practical administrative problems, and so on. Responses to problem-solving technique may be received almost immediately, but often they come based on developing intuition over the next 2 to 3 days. Frequently, the response comes in the form of a sudden holistic perception in which the individual suddenly finds that he simply knows the answer in all of its ramifications and completely in context, sometimes without even being able to put his newly found perception into words. at least initially. In some cases, the response may even arrive in the form of visual symbols, which the individual will see with his mind while he is in the focus 12 state. That's just like a theta state, like a meditative state, and which he will have to interpret after he returns to normal consciousness. So what they're saying is basically when you are trying to problem solve, you want to connect with, like, you're able to connect to the answer by connecting with your highest self. And we talked about these different aspects of the psyche yesterday. Now, great examples of this. I love crosswords. And so sometimes and I love crosswords because I'm such like a fact hoarder. Like I'm a jack of all trades. I know a lot about a lot of things because I'm very well read. I brag about myself. So sometimes I get stuck on an answer and I'm like, I know this. Why can't I think of it? I don't know. And it's like, what I'll do is I just skip it and I go to the next few things. And then if I can't figure out the answer once I've gotten through the rest of the puzzle, sometimes I'll start a new puzzle. Sometimes I'll put it down for a while. And it's funny because when I get stuck on a really tricky puzzle, I'll get frustrated and put it down and be like, fuck it, I don't even want to do this one anymore. And I'll maybe like take a break for a week and I come back and I'm like, boom, 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 boom. I know all the answers that I forgot because my brain is continually working on it. This is the same as creativity as well. Creativity in your business, creativity in your art. It feels divinely inspired. And we even see this with scientists as well. Scientists will suddenly get a download about like, oh my God, I need to do the study this way. Or what if I choose this? Or mathematicians have this. What if I approach it in this other way? Even if you've ever had to do anything with HTML or CSS, thank God I didn't go down the programming pathway, but you have all of this knowledge and you don't know how to put it together. And the more you focus on a problem, the harder it becomes to solve. Sometimes when you just walk away and you take a break, you come back and it just seems to like click. And it's because partially your brain is like working on it when you're not aware. And it's partially because your intuition is connecting to the collective consciousness. That's what we call like what people will call like the divine feminine is like the creativity. I call it divine creativity because it's just like, it's almost like creation is just imbuing you with knowledge. So if I'm blowing your mind, like, please say something. I see that we've had like no comments this time. And I want to make sure people are understanding what I'm talking about. And I'm going to read the next quote about this. About patterning. So it says, this technique involves the use of consciousness to achieve desired objectives in the physical, emotional, or intellectual sphere. It involves concentration on the desired objective while in a focus 12 state, extension of the individual's perception of that objective into the whole expanded consciousness, and its projection into the universe with the intention that the desired objective is already a matter of established achievement, which is destined to be realized within the time frame specified. Oh, Antea says, can I see a replay of this so I can catch you in the beginning? Absolutely, it'll be here after. So this particular methodology is based on the belief that the thought patterns generated by our consciousness in a state of expanded awareness create holograms which represent the situation we desire to bring about, and in so doing, establish the basis for actual realization of that goal. Once the thought-generated hologram of the sought-after objective is established in the universe, it becomes an aspect of reality which interacts with the universal hologram to bring about the desired objective, which might not, under circumstances, ever occur. In other words, the technique of patterning recognizes the fact that since consciousness is the source of all reality, our thoughts have the power to influence the development of reality in time-space, as it applies to us if those thoughts can be projected with adequate intensity. However, the more complicated the objective sought, and the more radically it departs from our current reality, the more time the universal hologram will need to reorient our reality sphere to accommodate our desires. Monroe trainers caution against attempting to force the pace of this process because the individual could succeed in dislocating his existence reality with drastic consequences. Okay, we're gonna get into this part. What this is saying is basically that like you can get into any reality that you want. Like you can literally create it from your mind because it is our subjective experience of reality that causes it to exist, right? So if you can see it in your mind's eye in the most vivid terms imaginable, then it's possible that it will become an external reality. But it's going to happen on its own terms. If you're already there, if you're already fairly close, so in the context of I want to make $10,000 in a week, if you're already somebody who's made $10,000 in a week before, or you've made $10,000 in a month, so it's conceivable that you could do it in a week, that could happen very quickly. But for somebody who has never made that money before, or they don't charge high ticket, it's going to take a little bit longer for that to present. So what do you have to do? You have to align your current reality with that reality as much as possible. So if you're trying to manifest $10,000 in a week and you haven't done it before, you need to make your week like that. This week needs to be lived as much like somebody who makes $10,000 in a week. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, does that make sense? Please tell me, because I want to make sure I'm not like talking from up here and people don't get it. So essentially, your question no longer needs to be, what do I do? How do I make more money? How do I make more clients? Like, how do I find more clients? That's not the question. The question becomes, what would somebody who makes $10,000, if I were already making $10,000 a week, how would I spend my time? That's the question. That is the thing that will give you the information to change how you function in this hologram of reality that allows that $10,000 to show up faster, because you have to look at where you are versus where you want to be, right? And that's when we talked about things from yesterday. If you don't have, yes, Tanya says energetically align. Yes, that's what people mean when they say to align. When you think about what your goal is, you have to look at, how is my reality reflecting that today? Does it reflect that, right? And so that's how we have to get there. And that's what I was talking about yesterday with the practical approach to things. If you're not charging high ticket programs, if all you offer are $100 readings or $100, $100 sessions, then you're going to have to sell 100 of those in a single week in order to make $10,000. You have to have the capacity to like align with that. And things can happen really quickly. So that's where we see really rapid shifts for people. Like when people try to change things very suddenly, it can cause a huge shakeup. So an example I like to use with this, like think about Moldavite, which if you haven't been on TikTok, I'll explain Moldavite. Moldavite is a tektite. It's a crystal, but it's not an earthly crystal. It's formed from an asteroid that hit the earth 15 million years ago around the Czech Republic. And so it's very expensive and it's very powerful. And the idea is that it got a reputation on TikTok as being a crystal that ruins your life because so many people learned that it was this powerful manifestation stone. It gets you right on your path that you want, but they were doing it without having done any inner work before. And so, yeah, it was stripping things out of their lives. But sometimes when you ask for big things, you get big consequences. So when I first started manifesting, when I was doing manifestation work for the first time, like 2-3 years ago, I said, I want to be, I was working for a nonprofit as an attorney. And I said, I want to be a life coach. I want to make as much money as possible. I want to work for myself. I want to be a brand. I want to be a New York Times bestselling author. I want to do speaking tours across the country. I want to be famous. These were the things that I wanted from the get-go. So what happened 2 months after I was doing shadow work with these desires in my heart, because I was not aligned whatsoever with that request, I was fired from my job. And if I hadn't been consciously looking to align my path with what I was calling in, that could have been devastating for me. And it's funny because I will often have dreams that I've gone back to work for that that nonprofit. And I always wake up ugh. But I think what's happening is that I get these glimpses into these alternate timelines where I'm actually still working there, is what it is. Like it's so wild. My dreams of those specific dreams are so vivid that I sometimes forget that I didn't go back to work for them. I think like sometimes I think like, oh yeah, I like did a contract job for them like right after I got fired, and I didn't. That never happened. So if you've ever had a really specific dream where you experience like a different timeline, like generally that's exactly what's happening, is that you're getting to see what's happening in these other alternate universes for yourself. And you can often bring that information to you. So how do you get answers? How do you jump into your rich bitch timeline where you have everything that you want? Part of it is looking at, how do I align my current day-to-day reality with that vision? And I had a session with a client yesterday where we kind of touched on this, where she was saying like, well, I'm not having these like 100K launches when I feel like I should be. Like this should be effortless. And she's making money from her program, so that's not the problem. She just feels like shit over the fact that it's not like people signing up like hotcakes. And it's because she's not connected to the big, like she's asking for the big vision of being like this like radical like advocate for like healthy relationships, like heterosexual relationships. And then she's just still focused solely on this program. So yesterday we talked about like, have you been wanting to do public speaking? If so, go pitch yourself as a public speaker. And she's almost done with her book. So it's like, take that book, finish the book, and actually look to get it published. You have to start taking the action, and not just the action, but the embodied action. So the action that's going to put your reality as close to your dream as possible. Is this making sense, guys? I want to think that you're all captivated and just like really intent on what I'm saying. But I also want to check in and make sure everybody's on the same page. So anyway, that's how it works. How we jump into that other timeline is by aligning our current reality with that reality as much as possible. You can also get answers from that future version of yourself already living that life. And the way you do this is you want to basically like drop into a meditative state, which, you can do it however you want. It's literally like as simple as sitting and breathing. I mean, you can, and listening to like, music that's like really soothing, really calming with your eyes closed. You can do that, but you're like in a good meditative state when like, how does it feel? I mean, I know I'm preaching to the choir here because I see so many people who are already really great with this stuff, but basically it's almost like you're like in between sleep. And you shouldn't be lying down because I'll fall asleep every time, but it's almost like if you were to like twitch or like move a muscle, it would like kind of shift it would like bring you back to awareness, right? So you want to get into this kind of like nice meditative open space. I guess that's the way I can describe it, is you feel open. And you want to envision the future version of yourself who has everything you want. So if you have a vision like I do of being this version of yourself who is a New York Times bestseller and like does speaking tours, and it costs like, $20,000 like to work with you for an hour. Like if that's your vision of your future, you want to make that version of you as specific as possible in your mind's eye. So what do they wear? What do they look like? Imagine them in different situations. So what are they like at like a party with famous people? Like, are they on a red carpet somewhere? What does that look like? What do they look like when they're ordering coffee at like a local coffee shop? What do they look like when they're just like, how do they interact with like wait staff if they're at a restaurant? How do they interact with their family? You want to make them like, what are they wearing? What do they smell like? The more specific you can make that vision of your future self, the more likely it is that you're going to develop a really strong connection. Once you see them, once they feel really real to you, imagine them coming to stand right in front of you where you're sitting and meditating, and ask them your question. Ask them the question of like, what do I need to like make that 10K this week? Or like, what am I missing? Or like, if you're thinking about like investing in a coach or a program, like, is like, should I be investing in this? Like whatever your question is, that's when you ask it, is when they are so vivid to you that like that like it feels like they are standing right there. And when I tell you that I have got some of the best advice of my life from my future self, it's like honestly been mind blowing. So like one time, and it's been different kinds of advice every time. So sometimes I've had my highest self come and tell me, well, like the reason you're not selling is because you're not good at sales. Like you feel really weird about selling to people. And so you need to learn how to have those conversations in a way that makes you feel really empowered. And so I'm like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And then other times she's just given me a pep talk and been like, why are you acting like you're like, like you're not somebody, right? Like sometimes she's given me pep talks and sometimes she's just like bitch slapped me with the truth. Like you're accepting bullshit. Like your boundaries are really shitty and like you need to fix that. So you will get the advice that you need from your highest self. And that's how we jump into the rich bitch timeline, because we have to literally call upon that rich bitch version of ourselves and have her come and give us the information that we need in order to create the pattern that we need in this reality. And the way we help her do that is by aligning our daily life, our daily activities to what we're calling in as much as possible. Does that all make sense? I hope so. So anyway, that's basically the tip of the iceberg. I could easily talk about this, all the science, all of the understanding, the highest self, all this stuff. I could literally teach, like I could do it forever, honestly. Like we're already at almost a full hour. And yeah. So anyway, there's so much more that goes into it, right? Like there's gratitude practices. I have a specific way that I work with the spirit of money and write letters to her, him, her, it. It's a mercurial spirit, so it changes a lot. So I have a practice where I use gratitude letters to the spirit of money, and money gives me advice on what I need to do in my business. I talk about deity work to work with gods and goddesses, rituals. I talk about strengthening your nervous system, which is important because if you don't strengthen your nervous system and you get your blessings too fast, you get whiplash, right? So like when people like think about one of the worst points of your life, like most rock bottomy points of your life, and you know that it put you on the path that you needed to be on, and like you look back and you're blessed for it, but in that moment it's so overwhelming. And you see people do this, like you see it happen like when people get famous really fast and then they like jump out, then they like, you know, kind of they party too much or they start getting addicted to substances or whatever it is. You see that happen all the time with people who like get exactly what they want when they're too young to have it, right? Or they've had it too fast, like it's come really quickly. Like people who have experienced Moldavite, they got this stone wanting to manifest their realities without doing the inner work to be open and receptive to the challenges that were going to come with it. And what happened is that it just blew up their lives and ultimately put them on their right path, but it becomes a really tumultuous time. And so I teach people how to strengthen their nervous systems to hold those manifestations and to be ready for the kind of tests they're going to experience. And that can look like it looks like a bunch of different things. It looks like self-care. It looks like certain business strategies. It looks like full moon bathing, cleansing baths. Like it runs the gamut. So, I mean, I could literally dedicate a whole course just to this topic, but that's why I created the longer form of this workshop called Practical Magic. And so in it, I teach principles like this. I teach science. I teach manifestation. I teach business strategy. Like it has to be the practical that feeds into the magical. And what this does is by teaching the concepts, I teach you how to create your own unique manifestation method and your own business strategies. So that way you feel like the person who is already living that timeline. And so you live in self-assurance that it's on its way. It doesn't feel like something where you have to be afraid or you have to live in want or need, because you just trust in the depths of your soul that you know it's coming, that you're in that timeline now. So this program, it's 12 weeks and it's designed for people who are just done with the slow growth. So not only do we discuss magic, we also, and like science and all the things, we also form a little coven and we do 3 full moon spells together. And I mean, this is something I could easily offer in like the $10,000 range, but It's actually at least until October 1st, it is at $3,888. And I have two different payment plans available for people. One is split pay, so 2 payments. One is monthly payments. And I'm just so excited because the energy of learning this stuff just empowers you so deeply. And then bringing that power with other people who are also experts, who also have this like just genius in what they teach and what they do, it truly becomes like a mastermind. Like I always say, people hire one coach and they end up getting 9 others because everybody is just so powerful. And it makes those spell circles so juicy and electric. And then on top of that, I bring in 6 experts. I've got half of them talk about like hard business strategies. So I've got like a financial planning expert and like things like that. And then I've also got the woo-woo coaches. So I have Emily Moon, who's talking about like how to identify your past life trauma around money. So like that, when we talk about like the past life experiences that help you form your intuition, like we're going to be talking about that too. How can you find those past life lessons and learn from them so that way they don't hold you back in this lifetime? And this is really just like this program. It's perfect for any kind of business owner. I mean, when I ran it last time, I had a food artist and chef educator. I had an in-home care business owner. I've had coaches, I've had VAs and OBMs, like I've had healers, really, I've had, lawyers before. This is really like for anybody, honestly, because the principles are universal. But I will say that it's good for people who have a working knowledge of like social media and how to use a computer. So, because you need to be able to use Zoom, you need to be able to use Facebook. Like we have a Facebook support group, we have a group chat, and you get an online course system called Teachable to navigate. But the good news is that all of that is free. You don't have to pay for anything else once you're in. And our support calls are entirely dedicated to you going deeper into the lessons. So I do sometimes do a little bit of teaching, but for the most part, you're going to learn on your own. And then you get to come and get that one-on-one guidance that you want and need in order to apply those principles to your life. And I mean, there are no refunds, but the most incredible part of working with me is how quickly things can shift. Because I've had people manifest from a free 20-minute call with me, manifest like thousands of dollars once they got off that call. And so far, my record for people who have joined Practical, like one of my programs, is that I think somebody made $22,000 in like a week, 2 weeks after investing. So it can really happen so fast. I mean, I'm going to be talking to my client, Jenny Ambrose, on Monday here in this group. She manifested her investment back, I think, within 5 days of signing up with me. And of course, that's not guaranteed, and it's not everybody, but that is like the people who really delve into the stuff, like it happens that fast. And people who work with me long-term only continue to see those kind of results. I mean, you've seen Dr. Liz Dubois in this group. She started, like when we started working together, she replaced her old salary within a month of leaving her job. 3 months later, she was making $20,000 months. And then this year we stopped our work in June. And by June, she had already made $100,000 of cash in her business for the year. So yeah. And then I've had people manifest international moves. I've had people manifest partners and soulmates, like, oh my God, like everything. Somebody's quit their jobs, like all of these things. The only catch is that I only take 10 people at a time, and we've already got 2 signups. So that means there are only 8 spots left. And I cap it at this because I like to make sure that everybody gets that one-on-one support that they really crave from a coach. I don't believe that in taking a course, a group program, that, you shouldn't have that kind of connection with somebody. So if you're ready to jump in, follow the link that I've pinned below, jessicadasilva.com/practical-magic. And if you have questions about whether you're ready to take that leap, like let's chat. Go ahead, like just slide into my DMs and I'll send you a link to get on my calendar. It's totally free to talk to me about my programs. And people always learn a lot. Like I've had people be like, your discovery call changed my life. And it's like, I mean, I'm happy. I love it. It's funny. So now tomorrow we're going to come back. We're going to discuss spells and money magic. So we're going to go from the science and we're going to go into like the full woo, which I'm so jazzed about. So if you're feeling, because now that you've learned the stuff from the past few days, feeling super connected to like your creator, your like that universal God force, whatever it is you want to call it, the universe, we're going to build on that tomorrow. So before I go, does anybody have questions on anything I talked about today? I'll take a sip of water while I wait for you to respond. Anyone? Bueller? Caroline, Tanya, Mariah, Morgan, Antea, anybody got questions? I'm going to give it a moment. If you're good, just tell me you're good. That's also fine. All right. Well, thank you so much again for your time. Today, guys. Don't forget to check out the details on Practical Magic, that 12-week program for reshaping reality, quantum leaping into a different timeline and up-leveling your whole life. Epiphany says, can vouch Jessie is magic. Thank you. All right. It's been so wonderful. Let me know if you have any questions for tomorrow. And feel free if you're going to rewatch this again from the beginning and you've got questions while I'm talking, use the hashtag replay, and it'll ping me so that way I can come in and answer questions. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye.